I'm not really sure about that. If
Oh,
you're
thank
that
you.
old.
We did not.
They had cell phones back then, and she kind of bridged those two, something from today and something from the past. Here she is to tell us more about it. Lynn Mavrakis, Building Bridges.
Honored guests, nice to see you if you're new and returning, and do come back. And members. It wasn't working. I had upgraded my cell phone about a week prior to this point, and it worked fine. And then all of a sudden, it went belly up. I turned into a real ferocious miscreant and went down to the store, and my mild little lady persona stayed in the doorway. I went in, saw Dan across the room, and I said, Dan, this is not working. And I walked over, and I set it down on the top of the counter, about like that. Oh, it was glass, so I had to pull back video. And Dan was very mild. He just looked at me and he said, what seems to be the problem? And I said, you know, if I knew, I wouldn't be down here, would I? He picked it up, turned it over a couple times, and handed it back to me. And said, it was not on. I said, oh. And then my sense of humor took over, and I started laughing. And I said, you know, I am so embarrassed. Please forgive me. I didn't really mean to be a miscreant. I didn't really mean that. And then I got very serious and said, Dan, my problem is that I don't know how to enter the world that you inhabit. Dan is a young person. He was born into the computer age. I was born into the group that is not quite the oldest generation. There's still a few more to die off, and then I will be there. And the difference between those of us who were born before technology and cell phones and all those things, and those who were born into it, is just tremendous. It's hard for those who were born into technology to realize what it was like without it. We survived, we did okay, but we didn't have all that. The differences are tremendous. I see them as falling into three categories. I see one of those categories being self-concept or self-identity, another one being how these two different generations verbalize and how they talk to each other. Those of us who were born before the tech age have been around long enough, longer than we like to admit perhaps, long enough to really understand each other and to have developed a pretty good self-understanding. It just comes with age, it comes with maturity, it comes without a lot of distractions. A lot of people, younger people today, I find are terribly distracted by technology. We bring a presence with us as we move into interacting. We don't impose necessarily, and I'm not trying to glamorize this or tear down another generation. I'm trying to see it as clearly as possible as it appears to me. We will bring a physical presence and then a presence of also just a totality of who we bring to a situation. The younger generation, the tech generation, and Dan is of that group, lacks some of that. They haven't been around long enough to develop a real solid group identity. Their technology identifies them, and I'm not sure they have as a group an identification other than that, as important as it is. Another difference, the second difference I see, is in verbalizing, in talking. The older generation likes to talk. They like to discuss. They like to come back to issues and approach them again and waive them and move on or move back as necessary and add to them. It isn't just repetition, it's development also. The younger generation, the tech generation, is not really given to talking that much. They text, they talk that way, but I'm talking about really verbalizing. And they can escape into that rather than pursuing communication as we probably commonly define it. A third difference, as I see it, has to do with listening. The older generation, by and large, is patient listeners, and that comes with time. They just tune in the cracks a little bit more. The younger ones, the tech generation, is not really used to doing that. They're used to having the ability to exit out with kinds of things and text and whatever. They often are not terribly good listeners. Some of that comes with practice, of course, and age. So where does this leave us? We are at a point of opportunity. We're the bookends, the tech generation on one hand and the older generation. We're the bookends of the adult culture now. We exist between those two extremes. And what we need to do to avoid passing like ships in the night, which can be a terrible loss, a terrible, well, I just think it's temporal to be like that, to not engage regardless of generation. And the differences between us are vast and wide and deep. So what do we do about all that? But what we do is simple. We build bridges. We build bridges. The how of doing it is the stickler. We don't really know how, but if we did it, we'd have a prototype. A really good prototype. Technology is going to keep moving forward. The generations are going to keep dying off. And if we have a prototype on how to really communicate effectively and not turn into miscreants when it doesn't work, we're going to be much, much better off. We do have all of this ahead of us. Are we willing to do it? Can we do it? I think we can.